I did. Fucking did it. Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. I figured I'd just get right into the marathon story. First off, I'm back in Colorado. It snowed about a foot yesterday. I'm standing in the snow right now, barefoot, and it actually feels amazing because my feet surely need it. So the marathon was a few days ago, and I really didn't know what to expect. I'm going to put out another video talking about the preparation for it, but I really just want to talk about the day. I arrived in the morning feeling good. I was feeling light, I was feeling clear, I was feeling excited, very emotional. I was definitely like tearing up and crying a bit. It was just a big day. I mean, when I signed up for the marathon, I really was like, had no idea what journey it would take me on, but it completely changed my whole perspective of feet, of natural movement. It just set me on this crazy journey. So even, I just felt like I had already like accomplished something just showing up. Even if I didn't do anything, even when I ran a mile, it didn't really matter. I was just excited to be there. There's definitely some nerves going on, feeling a little bit crazy, but also excited. Holy forking shirts. Here we go. Icy shot, people. So in terms of what I packed, I kept going through a few different options, but I ended up I have this little backpack, and I put these two like kind of collapsible, like little, what do you call them, like water bottles, very small. They hold like maybe 8 ounces each, but I didn't bring any water because I knew 6 miles in I had my first aid station, so I had that going. And then I had a little visor. I also had like my bigger hat. I had like 2 long sleeve shirts. One was a bit more like of a sporty one. I had a short sleeve shirt. And then I had just like a little bit of trail mix that I had made. I had this one peanut butter chocolate protein bar, some chocolate peanut butter almond hazelnut spread kind of thing. And I think that was it. I kept it very simple. I had my phone and my AirPods, although I ended up not listening to any music the whole time because I had to be so present and so focused. So the race gets started, and people are definitely looking at me like, barefoot? Like, what? Crazy, because no one had ever run this course barefoot. And I should just say that it was the Fruta. It was in a marathon in Fruta, the Cocopelli Trails, and it was this thing called the Desert Rats race. And everyone was super nice. It was very well organized. I'm definitely not a runner and a racer, so I don't really know that world, but I felt just, even though I was the only barefoot person, I still felt welcomed in the whole experience. So we get off, and the first mile is like this kind of pebbled road, and pebbles and gravel is definitely pretty tough on the feet, but I felt good. And so I'm feeling good. I'm kind of running to everybody. There's like the excitement, the adrenaline of the whole thing. And by the way, my feet right now are freaking freezing. The adrenaline of the whole thing is just like getting me amped up. We start climbing up this mountain, and I'm like just in my element because it reminded me of some of the trails I've done around here. And I'm just like flowing up it, feeling great. And usually like steep mountains, you're kind of like walking up. So I'm kind of walking / jogging at different parts with everybody, and some people are asking me about the barefoot stuff, and whoa, it's crazy, you know, whatever. And I'm going, I'm feeling good, and I kind of felt like that Mr. Miyagi vibe, you know, in the movie where he's like, wax on, wax off, and then like you realize it's like to block. So I'm feeling like that, where like all these random things I did, training in Costa Rica, like jumping on rocks and running in beaches, like everything's coming together. I'm like, oh, I did this really diverse training. I feel good. Even though I only had 3 weeks back in Colorado to actually train in the mountains. So we make it through the first aid station 6 miles in, and I'm like just amped up. Like timing was good. It took me a little over an hour. Just feeling strong. My feet feel good. I'm like, this is gonna be easy. I've got this. Yeah. Wow. Most beautiful course. I mean, my only course, but wow. So I keep going, still feeling good. And then, oh, there was one thing I forgot to mention. So yeah, so about 10 miles in, I was running, and my feet are starting to feel tender now. I'm like, okay, they're tender because the terrain was starting to shift, and it was going from like just a mixture of different terrains to like very rocky, very gravelly. And to me, I would say running, even walking barefoot on like rocky and gravelly terrain, because this is actually a mountain bike course, pretty well known, I guess. That's second to like walking on cacti and like lava or something and hot coals. It's probably one of the hardest things to walk on because there's very terrain, it's sharp, it's jagged, and it's just like, oh my God. Even though my feet are strong, it was like, whoa. Mind you, I was just also at the beach, so I hadn't really gotten to train as much as I wanted to in that regard. So I'm starting to feel it. And then I'm getting a little bit tired. My feet are dragging. I kick a rock. I look down. I felt fine, but I had a blood blister start to form. and my feet are getting more and more tired. Hit the 10-mile aid station, and now I go off, and I'm starting to slow down. I'm starting to realize, like, oh man, this is this is tough. So amazing. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Not gonna lie though, this trail, oh my god, it's been like the going uphill actually, and like some of the more rockier parts were easy. I felt great, and most of the trail, especially like the more flat, just like all along this rim, which is so beautiful, is literally this, which is without a question, I think, besides like walking a cactus, the hardest thing to run. And even walking, I've been walking a lot. Oh my god, my feet are feeling it. I'm almost halfway done, so I'll see. Feeling good though. Happy to be here, happy to be alive. So 13-mile aid station, I'm like find myself like visibly walking, and like in some cases almost like walking very slowly, and just I'm in nature, and I'm just tuning in, and I'm like, you know, God, universe, just like please, any like clear terrain would just be absolutely amazing. And then I would get it for like 10 seconds, and then it would get really rocky again. And I really didn't expect that. And I thought, you know, of course it parts and I'm trained for that, but the almost like 80% of the course was that. I couldn't have imagined that. It was really painful at times. Even the sensation started to turn to like, whoa. And I'm like laughing and kind of like, this is ridiculous. And people are passing me like, oh my God, you're crazy. You're like badass, bro. I could never go 10 feet in this terrain. So I'm like representing these barefoot people, and I'm trying to like just, I'm gonna make it, can I push it? I'm gonna quit, like just all these different thoughts going on, just trying to stay so present with nature and just tuning into nature, like let's work together, anything that I can do, just like please, you know, and just like pleading with the universe. And then I decide, you know what, I'm gonna put on, this is the other thing I brought, they're called Skinners, and I had actually had backed them Kickstarted many months ago, and I only had tried them once before I left, and they're basically a sock that has a little bit of this like rubber padding on the bottom, and I took out the lining, so it was pretty much just like wearing a sock with like the slightest bit of protection. And I'm so glad that I brought them, because it helped me so much. So first of all, my blood blister popped, so it helped just to cover that a bit, and then it helped just give me enough of an edge where I could continue on with the marathon. If I didn't have them, I could have made it, but it would have been like even tougher than I could have imagined. I may have turned back. So I'm glad I ended up bringing something as backup. And I found myself kind of going back and forth. There would be parts where I'd take it off and I would walk and I would run, and then I'd put them back on when I really needed it. So my feet were definitely happy. And it was just enough edge, even though it's like just wearing a sock with a little bit of protection, just enough edge to get me through and to keep me going and moving. Well, friends, about 20 miles in, I kicked a rock a while back. So the last 5 miles I had to put on these sock things. It helps a little bit to have a tiny bit of protection on the bottom, but pretty much nothing. But wow, this course has been insane and relentless. I hit the 20-mile mark, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to complete this, but there's like this huge climb at the end. And oh, there's another thing I forgot to mention, and I do not recommend this part to anybody. I also don't necessarily recommend running barefoot unless you know what you're doing, and I have videos, and just be smart and tune in and know your body. But the night before, so the day before I stopped eating about 4 o'clock. I wanted to like just be really clean and clear. And it's funny because I was running during the marathon, and someone was like, Mexican last night was a bad choice. And then I ended up running into his fiance later on, and she was struggling, and we were just talking a bit. She's like, my stomach's kind of turning, and I'm like, oh, let's just walk for a bit. And I was foraging some like juniper. I was like, just smell this and just tune into like the nature of the mountains, because everywhere you go, every place in nature has its own sense of medicine. I was told this recently, and it's like to really just tune in and to heal through that, not to just think that you're alone. Because as runners, especially with shoes, you know, it's like you're not actually touching nature unless literally you fall on your face. I realize that. Like I'm barefoot, I'm on the ground, and yes, I cannot go nearly as fast as these runners, and it's, you know, this was an intense run, but like you're almost cut off. You're completely cut off from the essence of like this just being in this natural space, unless you literally trip and fall, you know, and then you're touching the ground for a second, then you get back up. So anyway, I was just like tuning into that nature space and kind of like, and she started to feel better and she went off. But okay, so what I forgot to mention was the night before, I decided not to eat anything before, at 4 o'clock on. I woke up that morning, decided to skip breakfast. And I don't recommend this, but I've done a lot of fasting. I've trained a lot without food, so I felt okay about it. So I decided to basically throughout the first half of the race. So from the day before to 3.5 hours into this race, 13 miles in, it took me about 3.5 hours, ultimately 7 hours to finish the whole thing. I did not eat a single thing. And then I had my power bar and really just ate some dried nuts and fruit, like some orange slices and banana and stuff for the rest of the race. And I know a lot of people are like, have goo and salt tablets and all these things, and to each his own. But I understand like the way my body works, and from what I've learned about fasting, I have a lot of energy and I can really just tune into like my natural energy without having to eat too much. Because I'd rather have a nice clear stomach than like think I need to like carb load or something. So anyhow, I 13 miles in, I do that, and then we get to the 20-mile marker, and a lot of the ultra marathoners are passing me, and they're just like, "Whoa, barefoot crazy," and I'm just like, "Yeah, this is this is intense. I did not expect this much of the trail to be so freaking intense." But like I'm just going through it, and like they can't like, what was I thinking? You're crazy, man. But also, this is like the most amazing, hardest thing I've ever done in my life. So we have to do this climb. About 900 feet up for like a couple miles, and I'm just like, I can't believe I'm gonna finish this race. It's just like blowing my freaking mind. The last 2 miles I'm running, and I just have this revelation about acceptance within myself and finally feeling accepted, and like pushing myself to such an extreme. I just start bawling. I'm not gonna go into the story of what I discovered necessarily, but I just started bawling, crying. I was like, oh my god! And I'm running and running and running. And by the last mile, like I'm completely barefoot again. Take the things off. I was like, I need to finish this the way I started it. And I'm just like sprinting down this mountain, and I can hear people cheering because like every time someone passes through, like the finish line is just in this. And I finally, and I run and I make it through, and I just collapse down. I find a little spot, I collapse down, and I just start hysterically crying. That was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Oh my god, look at my feet. Oh, it's such beautiful, magical feet. After the race, a gentleman comes up to me and he's like, "Can I ask you about this barefoot thing? Because it seems wild, but honestly, like I've spent thousands of dollars on shoes and I have so many issues, and I've run 100-mile races. I've run 240-mile weekend race." Like he's like a very skilled, amazing runner, and he had actually fallen like 7 times and had a lot of issues with his shoes and all this stuff. And I didn't fall at all. My feet were definitely tender as a fuck. But I talked to him a bit about being barefoot and just like barefoot awareness and education. And it kind of hit me even a few days before the race. I'm not a runner. I'm not in the world of running. And while I appreciate like that whole world and the competitive side, I wasn't doing it to be competitive. I didn't really know why I was signing up. It wasn't until I recognized that I was on this journey just to experience, right? To like, I set this goal and I knew the goal would push me, but it wasn't about the race. To me, it's become about learning about the functioning of the feet, learning about being barefoot, spreading barefoot awareness. It's like hundreds of people have started to send me pictures. Look, I'm going barefoot, and friends are like, I just went barefoot, or that was an amazing barefoot hike. And just getting to spread the awareness of the foot and the love of the foot, because it's the foundation of our body, right? It's just like our hands. Our hands can do all these amazing things. Our feet are equally amazing, but when we shove them in a shoe and forget about them, it's like, like we lose a lot of the functioning. And there are amazing trail running shoes. There's Luna sandals and Earth Runners and things that like really allow your foot to be a foot. And there's barefoot shoes and minimalist shoes and Vivo and Vibrams and all these things that are great. And the Skinners, which were made, they definitely helped me. I probably did about 10 miles of the race in these Skinners, maybe more like 8, but still, like that was amazing. Like I said, had I known this race would have been that tough and that most of it was like the hardest terrain to go barefoot on, I probably wouldn't have done it. But then I was like, oh my god, I'm so broken down right now, but it's just gonna make me that much stronger, And surprisingly, that night I woke up in the morning and I iced my feet, and I was like, oh my god, they're so tender. And they were definitely bruised up because I kicked some rocks and different things like that, and I was worried. I like had to tune in. I'm like, wow, like this is painful. This is gonna suck for a few weeks. But the crazy thing is, 2 days in, this is actually my 3rd day now, but yesterday I was dancing, and today I, for a little hike in the snow, and I feel good. And yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, it's just crazy to realize how fast the body can heal when you tune into yourself, and you don't do something just out of ego, but like really tune into the trust that you have within your own body. You will learn. No one can teach barefoot running. You can give tips, I can give tips and thoughts and ideas, and you can read from people, but like at the end of the day, every single step you take is different. You have to be in that deep state of presence and awareness to fully experience that. So if you're interested in barefoot running, there's so many amazing resources out there. On so many people that have inspired me, you know, the book Born to Run. There's so much that you can find. Barefoot Ken Bob Saxton out there, Barefoot Ted on Instagram. He was a great source of inspiration. But no, like at the end of the day, if you feel a calling to just get to know your feet, more love on your feet, and they will do wonders for you. And check this out. This is how I've been standing the whole time, and my feet are